EPA Project Inclusion report on values and lifestyle-based banking. We're really thrilled to have you here and to have UniZest here. It would be great to begin with a sense of just your journey and how you found yourself as co-founder of a startup in fintech.
Okay, well, journey is probably a good word to use, actually, because I certainly never thought I'd be ending up here sort of a couple of years ago. So our journey to UniZest really started with some conversations with some clients of ours when I was consulting, who worked in the sort of the employment CRM space. And they really coined or framed a problem that they were dealing with around recruitment. And at the time, this was pre-COVID. The struggle that they had or talked about was bringing non-UK workers into the UK, and a point of friction that was occurring, which impacted those individuals and the recruiters. And that was about getting a UK bank account for non-UK workers. So we started just in this journey about talking about that, and the more we talked about it and explored and discovered, spoke to different people, we just sort of realized that it's actually quite a big problem. It just is difficult to get a UK bank account if you don't have UK residential history, you don't have full market knowledge about what to do, what not to do. And it certainly was impacting a particular market sector, which was in that sort of lower paid construction, healthcare workers, care workers. We sort of developed through our network or within the fintech space about, well, how can we solve this? And that led us to where we are today, which is just on the verge of launching a proposition which is targeted at non-UK workers and non-UK students coming to the UK to work and study.
Fantastic. And maybe I can zone in slightly on the point at which you created it. So I think you described the journey. What was that inflection point that made you think, it's us, we got to do this? We can't go to a existing provider to do something different for this underserved community, but rather we have to go create something. What was that inflection point for you?
Okay, so that's a good, interesting question, because I don't think there was a light bulb moment. It sort of just emerged that this is something that we had the skill set to do, and we had the connections and technology to be able to do. That sound like the bionic man. We have the technology to be able to solve this problem, and it also seemed to be a problem that no one else was addressing. And I think that's important from from a business perspective. Yes, there needs to be a problem, but is there a gap in the market for us? So the more we started talking to people who were involved in the process of bringing people to the UK, the more we're able to scale that up and understand what size of the opportunity could be, and also where could we play and where could we offer some unique features that could make that easier. And it just felt that it's something that we could, as a team of experienced people who had worked within the sort of fintechs and payment space, that we could actually set this up ourselves. We then took that out to get some funding to back us, to be able to sort of say, yes, you guys can do this, and here's a platform to be able to do it from.
Fantastic. And maybe a follow-up question is, in terms of the demographic that you're describing, workers who are international or students who are international, what are some of the characteristics of those communities, of those individuals, that have made your proposition so important?
So I think that's a really broad church if you think about everybody who comes to the UK, and we can't be all things to all men. So I think what we are doing is targeting two distinct groups. One of those groups is international students. Typically, these are people coming from China or Southeast Asia, wanting to come and study in the UK. One of the challenges that they have is that they often have to set up payments before they arrive in the UK for setting up accommodation or rent and tuition fees. We know the size of that market, and the UK has a very vibrant tertiary education sector, and we understood that was a challenge. Those students again have a variety of characteristics, but their primary unifying characteristics is their desire to come to the UK and that challenge of just setting themselves up when they're here. On the other side of the coin, in terms of what we broadly talk about workers, well, workers coming to the UK could be chief executives of a multinational company or people who are sort of seasonal migrant workers. Where we're focusing on is the latter, and that sort of lower paid sector, and mainly because that there's some pain points around that for both recruiters and the individuals themselves. So typically this could be seasonal migrant workers coming to work in the food and agricultural sector. We have a need for healthcare and care workers, and typically they come from countries like South Africa, Greece, Croatia. And what would be typical characteristics of those customers, although there's mixes within them, and I don't want to sort of say they're all the same, but often English isn't their first language. They're coming to the UK for a new start and new challenge, and the UK is often a very different culture with different infrastructures, and that can be difficult and challenging for them. Another factor that we increasingly started to learn about and understand was that lower paid non-UK workers have a higher proportion or higher propensity to fall victim to labour exploitation. So again, we're not saying that we are caped crusaders trying to solve that, but we're definitely aware of that, and we want to make sure that we are a force for good in that, and that we can help as much as we can alleviate that.
And that goes quite nicely onto my next question, Matt, which is as part of this report we have the word Project Inclusion, and we're trying to include more people into financial services because we know it's an enabler for prosperity and mobility in life and society. How will your proposition help people feel and be more included within the financial system and more broadly?
Yeah, so it's often the case that the people who have least get the worst service. So what we want to do is create the best possible product for those customers by using the best technology available. So our proposition is based off a digital wallet proposition, which is app-based and phone first. We know from our research that people in these categories, they are online, but they're online on their phone. They're not desktop or laptop users. So it needs to be phone first, and it needs to give them access to easily to the digital world through online shopping, etc. So we want to give them the best possible service that we can. We've also been very focused on when people come to the UK to study or to work, the first thing on their mind isn't a bank account, it's just a facilitator. So we're very conscious that we need to be a facilitator. So we're building a value proposition around best start. We want to give people the best start in this new country, this new venture that they're taking on. So part of that, there's sort of three parts of that. One of them is to make it as easy as possible for people to actually get onboarded. Banking processes can be complicated. They can be confusing. We want to make it simple as possible. So we've nailed that down to 5 simple steps to be able to then get on board, get their account set up as easily as possible. We understand that people can come from lots of different countries and English might not be their first language and probably won't be their first language. So we need to make sure it's clear communications, and it's very simple and easy to follow those instructions. Secondly, what we want to do is often our customers are going to have tight budgets. When you come into a new country, you're setting yourselves up. So we want to have some very practical offers and benefits for our customers, off practical things. And we've done some research, talked to stakeholders in that place. Often when people come over here, they want to improve their language, get themselves set up, educational courses. So we've brokered some discounts on things like that, as well as discounts and benefits of essentials like food and groceries. And then thirdly, the other aspect of our value proposition is around trying to signpost people to help. So we've teamed up with an organization called Just Good Work. Again, it was really important for us that we had a very solid independent organization that could give really good advice to people new to UK, and just good work do this in a number of markets and also in a number of different languages. And this is about signposting people to advice on simple things like, how does the health system work? How can you get accommodation? And what to look out for, what are your rights in the workplace, and also where can you go to if things go wrong. And that's going to be directly fed into our app as a resource center for people who are coming to the UK and looking for help and advice. So that's quite a long answer and quite a rambling answer, but again, this is very much about how we're trying to create this best start for people.
I love that. I love the concept of a best start for people. And you've touched on, actually, you probably answered the next question I had, which is, and feel free to add anything else that you may want to add, but I think you've covered it in a great amount of detail, which is, how are you developing and curating your products to suit the needs and the unique needs of your customer base and their circumstance? And I know the best start possible and the 3 points that you mentioned are a part of that. Is there anything else that you want to add to how you're developing and curating products?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think one of the things that we need to be constantly aware of is who uses our product. And obviously we're close to launch. When it's in use, we'll understand very, very quickly the types of customers, where they come from, what nuances, and we want to be able to serve up relevant content to relevant people. We're also very conscious that our customers are probably going to form into communities, and that there will be quite a complex matrix of people in different sectors, from different countries, in different geographic areas as well. So one of the things that we are developing is the ability to target customers with relevant communications for their community, so that we can again help integrate them into communities into the UK.
Fantastic. And I mean, and again, a part of the report, Matt, is around really catering for the needs of consumers and communities who are underserved.
Yeah.
I'd love to get a sense from you about your broader thoughts about the concept of lifestyle, and values-based banking, and its role as a means of really allowing and enabling financial inclusion.
I think that's a really good, it's a good question and a really great topic. And I think one of the things that I've said before is that banking isn't at the forefront of people's minds, and we need to be a facilitator. And within that means that we can't assume that we know more about someone's life circumstances than they know themselves. What we want to try and do is signpost them to help as best possible. I think one of the other things that we've taken the decision to go on the B Corp journey. So we've got B Corp pending status. And I think one of the reasons why we did that was because we can say all we like about these things and we can make big promises, but that's more about how we live that as an organization. So part of our our purpose needs to have some sort of external accountability about how we do that. So for us, it was really important that we were signed up as a business to not just be profit led, but also that triple bottom line commitment of profit and people and the environment. And I think really, I'm not saying that is relevant for every organization in the financial services space, but I think that's what we're using almost as a tool to make sure that we lift our heads up from our own business and look around us into the broader community that we're serving.
Thank you, Matt. And how do you see the landscape of financial services changing? Which I hope, and I think this is the question that we all ask ourselves at some point, which is the question we were grappling with earlier. You see an underserved community, you see a need in the market, and then you come up with a solution, and what you don't do, and you'll perhaps do this by being successful, we hope, and challenging mainstream providers. How do you see the landscape of financial services changing through the development of proposition like yours and Algebras and others who fall into this category?
Sure. What my hope is that the best technology solutions which give access to to life become more available to people in areas that are underserved. So at the moment, if you're looking at your well-paid millennials, they have access to digital banking, to app-based propositions, which are real life enabling. That can be sometimes almost taken away or not available into other communities that are less targeted by mainstream banks. So again, going back to what we want to do, the technology solutions that we have are enablers for us, but we want them to be enablers for our users as well. So we sort of, it's almost like seeing a democratization of digital banking technology. Hopefully that's going to make better products available to everybody, access to digital banking and other services that become available through open banking. And also, I think an important part of that is financial education about how these products can use and how they can benefit the end users.
Great. And in the spirit of what you described earlier, which is, banking is often not about the needs of the consumer. And I think you've tackled some of this, but I want to give another opportunity to maybe describe the challenges so that our audience can really understand from an inclusion perspective, what are the exclusionary challenges and obstacles that your target audience face when dealing with the current financial system in the way they transact. And I think you gave an example, but is there anything else that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, so some of the initial challenge is firstly getting a bank account and a bank account that is suitable for your use. Often, if you understandably, larger banks want to understand what their risks are, so they look at your history. And look at your history through bureau data, which can go back a long period of time. If you don't have that history, the assumption is that you're not a good risk for that customer, and that can sort of close off certain products or services to you. So some of the basic challenges of for people who don't have that history within the UK banking sector is that the banking products that they are able to have are are very, very basic. It doesn't give them access to, even things like, not access to sort of good card technology or the ability to transact online very easily. Things like that make it harder if you have to take cash out of an ATM and use cash, to buy your groceries. You can't necessarily benefit from online shopping where there might be better discounts and benefits. So, those are the things that, from the experience that we have, are some of the challenges. First biggest challenge is getting a bank account and getting it quickly, because that can create real hardship if you're over here to work and you can't get paid because you don't have the facility to be able to set up already to be able to do it. It can create week-long delays before you actually get paid. And then secondly, getting a product which gives you access to everything you can possibly want to have from a bank.
Fantastic. And Matt, I have one final question, and it's a question that we ask everybody who's taking part in this report. And as part of understanding, as we've talked about the needs of these underserved communities, how do you go out of your way as UniZest to listen to your audience and to your consumers and your communities?
Okay, I'll give you an example of what we've done and how we've gone about that. And it's through partnership. So as a startup business and a small business, we are serving lots of disparate communities. We can't assume that we know everything about all those communities. So what we're doing, we're partnering with certain organizations where we can fast track our understanding and knowledge, and then we can work with them to tailor products. So one of our first partnerships is with the Association of Labour Providers. They work with 7,000 organizations who are recruiting workers into the food and agriculture sector. So we've worked with them over the last 6 months to really understand what the needs of their customers are, what the characteristics of their customers are, and what the challenges that they face. So one of the key things for us is to learning by listening, and that mainly being through developing strong partnerships with organizations that can both give us access to customers, but can help us shape our product to make sure it's really market ready.
Matt, fantastic. We wish you the best of luck. I think we've said this to everybody who's participated. I think it's our collective success that will disrupt the entire industry to be more inclusive and to really go out of its way to engage communities and consumers who otherwise might feel left out. So we wish you the best of luck and look forward to hearing about your successes in the future.